Gina's Planet. We're going to read Little Tykes Jumping to the Rescue with Friends. Jump to the rescue with Cozy and friends. Cozy Coop and the gang are having fun in the puddles. Everyone is having a good time, but the puddles are awfully small. Then Cozy has an idea. It's time to play big. Whoa, now the gang is on a farm. And there are stepping stones across the river. Cozy leads the way. Hop, hop, hop. This is so much fun. Fairy takes a shortcut. She can just fly across the river. Suddenly, Truck and Chief Coop hear a noise. It's Fire Truck, and he is on his way to an emergency. He needs to cross the river. Oh no, Fire Truck fell into the water, and now he is stuck. Cozy knows what to do. If they work together, they can use a rope to rescue him. Chief Coop hops over to help. But Truck is nervous about crossing the river. He is too big and clumsy. Fairy flies the rope over to Fire Truck, but Truck still hasn't made it across. They need his help if they are going to pull Fire Truck to safety. Cozy, Fairy, and Chief Coop encourage Truck. Truck made it! Now 1, 2, 3, pull! Hooray! It took teamwork, but they pulled Fire Truck free. Good job, everyone. We saved the day. And that was the end of that story. We're going to continue with Unschooled by Alan Woodrow next, after we read Madeline. And then we will read Who in the World is Martin? Martin? No, Carmen Sandiego. In an old house in Paris that was covered with vines lived 12 little girls in 2 straight lines. In 2 straight lines they broke their bread and brushed their teeth and went to bed. They smiled at the good and frowned at the bad. And sometimes they were very sad. They left the house at 9:30 in 2 straight lines. In rain or shine, the smallest one was Madeline. She was not afraid of mice. She loved winter, snow, and ice. To the tiger in the zoo, Madeline just said, "Pooh, pooh." And nobody knew so well how to frighten Miss Clavell. In the middle of one night, Miss Clavell turned on her light and said something is not right. Little Madeline sat in bed, cried and cried, her eyes were red. And soon after Dr. Cone came, he rushed out to the phone and he dialed Dan Tum 10-6. "Nurse," he said, "it's an appendix." In a car with red light, they drove out into the night. Madeline woke up 2 hours later in a room with flowers. Madeline soon ate and drank. On her bed, there was a crank, and a crank on the ceiling had the habit of sometimes looking like a rabbit. One nice morning, Miss Clavell said, "Isn't this a fine day to visit Madeline?" Tiptoeing with solemn face, with some flowers and a vase. In they walked and then said, "Ah," when they saw the toys and candy and the dollhouse from Papa. But the biggest surprise by far, on her stomach was a scar. "Goodbye," they said. "We'll come again." And the little girls left in the rain. They went home and broke their bread, brushed their teeth, and went to bed. In the middle of the night, Miss Clavell turned on the light and said, "Something is not right." And afraid of a disaster, Miss Clavell ran faster and faster. And she said, "Please, children, do tell me what is troubling you." And all the little girls cried, "Boo-hoo, we want to have our appendix out too." "Good night, little girls. Thank the Lord you are well." "And now go to sleep," said Miss Clavell, and she turned out the light and closed the door, and that's all there is. There isn't any more. Now we're going to read our book in school. We're on chapter 47, from the point of view or perspective of George. Both teams gather around Principal Klein, and a rope lies on the ground next to their feet. Our principal clears his throat. "It's been a wonderful day, hasn't it?" Most of us clap and cheer, but I just let out a sigh. I want the day to be done. It's exhausting uncovering secret plots. Our principal wipes his brow, even though it's so very hot. Lily and I look at each other. I can't read minds, but I can read her mind because she's thinking the same thing as me. Please, 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 let us just get through this last event without any tricks. "You have all displayed great sportsmanship today," says Principal Klein. "I knew you had it in you." I bite my lip. "We had some difficulties in the beginning of the day, but that was no fault of yours," Principal Klein continues. I'm standing right next to our principal, and he pats me on the head. "If each captain will send 12 members of their team for our final contest will begin. Whoever wins the tug-of-war wins the entire Spirit Week. How exciting." I jog back to my team. I feel good about our chances. With Brian, Seth, and Kyle, all of my team, I don't see how we can lose. But then I look around. Where are Brian and Seth? Next time we'll be on chapter 48, from the point of view or perspective of Lily. Now we're going to read Carmen Sandiego. Who in the world is Carmen Sandiego? It's from a teleplay by Capizzi. An adaptation by Rebecca Tinker based on the teleplay by Dwayne Capizzi. And you're at Gina's Planet, and I'm Miss Gina. And I'm so glad you're here. Chapter 8 is where we left off. That night, I slipped out of my dorm room as silently as a ninja, just like Shadow-san had taught me. Anyone who looked inside my room would see a sleeping form on my bed. They would have no idea that it was really my globe and some pillows stuck under the blankets. It was dark, but I knew those halls like the back of my hand. Growing up on the island had its perks, and one of them was that after spending my entire early life here, I knew my way around better than anyone. I had mapped the entire academy years ago out of boredom, but now I was finally putting that knowledge to good use. I crept quietly through the hallway until I found what I was looking for. It was a storm drain, large enough to crawl through, that would take me out of the academy building and all the way to the far end of the island, unseen. I ducked inside and crawled through the drain on my hands and knees. I felt a thick, wet slime underneath my fingers. Yuck, I cried aloud. Then clapped a hand to my mouth. I continued through the pipe until I came to the grate at the end. Through the grate, I could see the harbor. But to my surprise, there was no boat in sight. When Grace said shipping out, I had assumed that he and the others would be leaving by boat tonight. So how are they getting off the island? I wondered. My question was answered by the sound of a loud engine starting up. I peered upward through the grate at the end of the storm drain and saw a helicopter waiting on the landing pad past a palm tree grove. Of course. Why hadn't I thought of the helicopter? It was very high tech, with a sleek jet black interior that almost made it look invisible against the dark night sky. The engine grew louder, and the metal blades on top began to spin faster and faster until a strong wind was blowing in all directions. They were about to take off. I grabbed the grate, and I pushed with all my might. Finally, it budged and fell open, allowing me to slip out of the storm drain and onto the cliffside. Something moved in the shadows behind me, and just for a moment I thought I saw a pale face in the darkness. It was in the rocks, a short distance away. I blinked. Mind bomb? It couldn't be, I thought. There was no way he was out here at this time of night. I decided it must be my mind playing tricks on me and returned my focus to the task at hand. A group of figures approached the helicopter, and I ducked behind a nearby boulder. Tigress, LeChèvre, El Topo, and Gray were making their way toward the helicopter's doors. "School's out, boys," I heard Tigress say. "Time to strut our stuff." I rolled my eyes. I would have to move fast if I was going to make it onto the helicopter unseen. I found myself wishing even more that I had my caper outfit, something stealthy that would blend into the dark of the night. But there was no use worrying about that. It was now or never. I took a deep breath and ran. I darted forward across the rocks and onto the helicopter pad. The metal rotors were spinning almost at full speed now, and the resulting gusts of wind practically blew me straight across the landing. I used all my strength to push forward toward the open door as fast as I could. I grabbed the sides of the helicopter and pulled myself inside. I then tucked and rolled into the supply area where I would be hidden from view, and curled up to make myself as small as possible. I hid there until the others climbed into the helicopter one by one. They were talking among themselves as they took their seats. I breathed a quiet sigh of relief. They hadn't seen me. The doors closed, and there was a strange, weightless sensation under my feet as the helicopter lifted into the air. I took deep breaths and smiled as I held my knees tight to my chest. I was leaving the island. For the first time in my entire life, I was going to see what the outside world was like. I was so excited I wanted to laugh, to yell and holler. Instead, I held my hands to my mouth to keep myself from making any noise. The minutes passed slowly. I could hear the muffled voices of El Topo and LeChèvre talking to each other, but the sound of the engine made it impossible to hear what they were saying. I managed to make out the words Jim and dig, but I heard nothing that would tell me where it was that we were going. After a while, I decided to risk shifting my position so that I could see out the window. I was dying to know where we were headed. Outside, I saw the ocean and a hilly, mountainous coastline below us. Suddenly, I felt a buzzing in my pocket, and I nearly shouted in surprise. I hurriedly grabbed my cell phone. I had forgotten I had it. There was the usual white hat graphic on the screen. "Player? Now is really not a good time," I half whispered, half shouted at him. "Don't you remember the rules? I know, I'm not allowed to call you on campus. But now you're not on campus. Are you taking a little field trip? What? How did you know?" Despite the circumstances, I was amazed at how much he was able to figure out just by using the computers he had at his home. "Remember how I could never hack past the jammers at your school to find out your location? Yeah, that's why you've never known where in the world I was. Well, guess what? Your phone suddenly lit up on my dashboard, and according to real time, it looks like you're on the way to drop point. Assume your positions," Vlad commanded loudly over the helicopter intercom. "I'll have to call you back." I hung up in a hurry and stashed the phone in my pocket. Drop point? So the helicopter wasn't going to be landing at all. The operatives were going to parachute down to their assigned location. If I was going to really escape the island, I would have to parachute too. Otherwise, I'd be brought right back. One by one, each of the helicopter's passengers walked over to a rack and grabbed a parachute pack. La Chèvre, El Topo, then Tigress each took a parachute and pulled it on as they would a backpack. Gray was last. To my horror, he took the final parachute and began strapping it on. I gasped as the helicopter's rear door began to open. La Chèvre jumped first. With a look of pure joy on his face, he seemed all too thrilled to be jumping out of a helicopter thousands of feet in the air, the highest ground ever. He was followed quickly by El Topo, who seemed less than happy to throw himself into the sky. I thought I heard him muttering something about belonging on the ground as we walked toward the open door. Nevertheless, he readied himself and jumped out of the helicopter with ease. Tigress was next. She hesitated beside the open door, her knees shaking. I found myself wishing I didn't have to hide so that I could make fun of her for being so scared. Luckily, Gray was thinking the same thing. Gray walked up behind her. "What are you waiting for?" he asked. Cats always land on their feet. Before Tigress could think of something clever to say, Gray raised a boot and shoved her out the door. She gave a high-pitched screech as she plummeted toward the ground. Sounds like a cat, I thought. It was now or never. "Hey," I yelled. Gray turned toward me, and his mouth dropped open in surprise. He was shocked and unsure of what to do, which is exactly what I was hoping for. I saw my chance and I took it, running straight toward him like a football player. Oof! Gray's breath caught in his chest as I barreled into him. He was sent flying backwards straight out of the helicopter, and I flew with him into the open sky. I clung tightly to Gray as the two of us fell. Wind rushed past my face, and I was gripped by the cold air. "Black sheep!" I heard Gray exclaim above the sound of the roaring wind. "Don't let go!" I told him, my teeth chattering wildly. I was frozen to the bone. I had only my school uniform to shield me from the icy air blowing past me. I had been so focused on escaping the island that I hadn't even thought to find a coat. But despite the cold, I felt warm inside because I knew Gray wouldn't let me go. Clouds rushed past us. The distant rocky ground was getting closer and closer by the second. I tried to ignore the sickening falling sensation in the pit of my stomach. Suddenly, I saw La Chèvre's parachute open and billow up into a mushroom shape far below us. Soon after, two more opened that I knew must be El Topo's and Tigress's. Then it was our turn. Gray pulled a cord on his parachute pack, and we both felt a sudden jolt as the parachute burst out, catching us. We floated gently toward the ground. Around us, I could see what looked like ancient ruins with towers of crumbling stones rising from the ground in the desert landscape. Gray and I landed a short distance away from the others. As the parachute fell to the ground, we took off the pack and tossed it aside. Suddenly, Gray grabbed me by my arms, which were still frozen stiff from the cold. "Are you out of your mind?" He kept his voice down so the others couldn't hear, but it was filled with shock and concern. Gray looked around and to make sure none of the others had seen me, and then leaned down toward me angrily. "You just put your life and my entire criminal career at risk," he cried as loudly as he dared. I tried to walk away, but he pulled me back. "Relax. I'm the one who stowed away," I told him. "They'll have no reason to blame you. What do you think the faculty will do when they find out you decided to tag along on our mission?" I shrugged. "Who cares?" "Who cares? I'll be long gone by then." "Doing what? Backpacking around the world?" "You're still a kid. You have no money, no connections. How will you eat?" "I'll steal, obviously." "It seems simple enough to me. I needed to get off the island, and now I had done that. I could go wherever I wanted, stealing as I went. Crackle? Let's move. Tigress's shrill voice pierced through the ruins. Stay here. I mean it. Gray told me sternly. You can't mess up our first heist. It's everything we've worked for. It's everything we worked so hard for. Gray ran off through the ruins and turned onto a narrow stone street. Time to crash a caper, I said aloud with a smile. Next time we'll be on Chapter 9 of Who in the World is Carmen Sandiego. Thank you for listening. Good night and goodbye. Bye-bye. See you next time.